Okay, my outstanding friends, another shocker du jour. They just never end from the home of the shocker du jour, Mudfossil University. Please, thumb up. If you don't like it when you're done, thumb it down. But don't forget, all right? We need to get some exposure. You need to start sharing, start talking. And we, the evidence is overwhelming. It's just overwhelming, as you will see. So let's take a look at this formation right here. Who can explain that? Well, I don't know. Maybe I can. Maybe you can. If you've been watching me, you can. All right, so before we go any further, just think about this for a couple seconds and see if you can think of what that might be. All right, now I'm going to be backing off of this. But a lot of times I just get pictures like this. I know where this is. I discovered this myself, as a matter of fact. We're going to go looking at it in a second. Now this is up in, I believe this is in Minnesota, up in this very strange area. Very strange. And I need somebody from that area to comment. It's up by Duluth. And I'm going to explain it. So here goes. Okay, my friends, this is over the top insane. You see these layers are basically like this. This is also tissue, layers of tissue, just like this is. Now this is where I believe it's in the skin area, or it could be, I'm not sure. But you see all the little balls? Well, they're not little, but they're balls. You see them all over the place here. There's a layer in the skin, just below the skin layer, basement layer, and so forth. Well, below the top skin, which I believe would be about somewhere here. This is skin. Then you get into this bally area here that lets you move around. Now where it is on a creature's body, I don't know. But these are these connective tissue layers. So it had some strength to it. And it had some mobility to it with all these balls. But I think that's pretty much everywhere on the body. Now what that is, I'm not certain. Is that an artery? Is that a little bone? I'm not sure what it is. I think it could be a bone. You see this? Well, I don't know what to think about this. I can't make any determination. Well, it's something. When you see this, that's up here. Everything around it has eroded away. That is some structural thing, which all this stuff is too. Now this is on the beach. You see it runs the whole distance all the way over because it's the same tissue. And the crazy thing is, nothing really literally is growing on this particular type of stuff. There is some green here and there, but that is the red blood area. This is a black. You see how black that is? Nothing's ever going to grow there, and nothing around it will grow there. And this whole layer appears to have been flooded with the stuff that says, you're not going to be able to grow here. Look, all over the place, all over to here, everywhere. This is the stuff that says no growing here. When you see black, it says no growth, stay away. When you see red, you see green. There's red in here somewhere, but there's none in here. This is all black, heavy duty, stay out of here, anything that grows. There's a couple little blood vessels out here, way out in the edge of the skin, apparently. And then it comes out to here. Well, whatever this is, I don't know. But that, my friends, zero question that is interstitium layer. And in here, I believe, is the fluid-filled highway. In this case, it's the return fluid-filled highway, maybe. But it's the vein blood stuff. That black is usually vein blood. So I'm going with it could be something to do with the lymph, the vein blood, but it's definitely vein blood. And that's why black doesn't grow stuff. That's because it's in the vein. All right, you see that? Now look at this. Look at that. Look at that. What the hell is that? this going around all these. This is not somebody doodling on here. This is Google Earth. And this is Duluth over here. Now, can somebody explain to me why these outlines are so distinct and so exact? And it's the whole lake. It's not just these, but these are extremely distinct, and they actually encroach on each other's territory. These circles, and it's almost like joined. You see it? You see that? That's like a polarity push. Very, very, very uniquely strange. And they all have them. They all have the same, literally the same distance around them is basically the same. Now, we saw over here that spot here, and I bet you this was going to be basically the same. Let's take a look at that one. All right, look at what you see there, and just take your time and look at it and try to determine what you think that might be. Now, I do a lot in the biological area, and to me, I see bacteria, basically. Clumps of bacteria. That's what I would say if somebody showed me that picture. What do you think it is? Okay, so have you had enough time to formulate an opinion on what that might be? Just continue to look at it, think about it, consider the possibilities if that was something that was on Earth, which it is. And we're at 950 meters from Earth looking down. Now, where are we? Well, let's take a look. This is in Minnesota. Look at this. Look at that. That looks like some kind of a membrane-ish thing, and this is another side of the membrane-ish thing. And this, to me, this is biology, I'm pretty damn sure. And what it is, I don't know. Biology, yes, that I know. Now, there's a bunch of stuff I found interesting up here. This is Duluth. Now look at this down here. That's to me, that's unusual. This borderline here is like a membrane, and when you get real close to it, it just keeps looking more and more like a membrane. And I have to have somebody from that area to comment on this. Now, this is, like I said, right near Duluth. Now, whatever's going on here, it shows that here that the elevation here is 176 meters. And over here, it goes down to 167 meters. Well, that's elevation. I don't know what that means, I gotta be honest with you. But something's going on in here, in this zone. It's not just here, it's and then look, wait till you see these group of islands over here. Now, I just stumbled across this. So, hold on, let me go find those islands. They're just studded with that stuff. Hold on a second. Okay, my friends, these are those little islands. They have the exact same borders around them, just like the whole lake does here. Now, instead of going deep into this, I'm going to go up to Mount Spur, and we're going to look at that again. It's still sort of in the transitional phase. Now, this is a few months back about at Mount Spur, and it was increasing. You can see, and this is over the course of years here. Well, not actually, 2023 6/1 of 2023, and so it's sort of flat, and then 2024 it started up, and here we are 2025. It's on the increase, obviously, and sometimes there's some pretty good hits, and they were talking about the different gases that are coming out. That's what interests me. They say there's an increase from less than 50 metric tons per day of sulfur dioxide in 2024. This is an increase. All right, so whatever the increase was. Now, they also measured an increase in CO2, carbon dioxide, at the summit and at the crater peak vent. And that's 2.5 miles or 2 miles south of the summit. CO2 concentrations at crater peak were especially high in the past. Such values have been observed prior to eruptions. Now, CO2 and SO2 are two different gases, carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide. Now, it's interesting to me to see that the CO2 concentration at crater peak, which I believe is lower, were especially high. CO2 at the summit and at crater peak. Well, CO2 concentration at crater peak were especially high. Okay, so there's a little difference between crater peak and the summit. Let's just go see what those two places are. Okay, once again, my friends, it's shocking. You see these? You see those? This is snow, and it's melted because this right down here is a steaming volcano, and it's melted these straps, the snow that was above these particular structures, and they are structures and they are straps. I'd love to see exactly what they're made of. I think I already know, but this is Mount Spur. And this is the volcano. And this is the melted piece. And same over here, melted. And we can see the structure of these as well. Same thing. Same structure. Now they can get right up close here and take very, very detailed pictures of this. But I'm telling you right now, that has melted the snow that was covering that cavity, which is overhanging like this. And what is that cavity? Well, I can tell you right now, Mount Spur is an anal canal from a reptile or a avian bird creature. Now, this erupts and flows down here. All right, let's look at it carefully. All right, so Spur erupts and flows down. And it comes from over here and then wraps right around here. Look at how it has its own layer coming through here. All right, that's the flow from Mount Spur. Now it interacts with other flows from up here that are glaciers, yes, but it stays in its own pathway. Now this is a winter-summer shot type of thing. This is Spur's flow, coming straight down. Now we got stuff coming over here and coming over here is flowing into it as well. And this is from there's a secondary crater. We'll look at that in a minute. So it's all coming down here together. Now, don't forget it started up here, Spur. So this is the borderline of Spur this way. Other stuff is moving in this way, but this is primarily the Spur discharge right here. All right, because we got stuff coming in this way, which was not from Spur, and we got stuff coming in from this way, which is not from that crater up there either. All right, so they're coming in together, but this primary, this brown stuff, I know it's crazy, but it's true. It's true. This brown stuff is what Spur pooped out because it's an anal canal. It's an anus. I'm just telling you what it is. That is what came from Spur. All this other stuff is also emissions or glacial emissions of something. There's something in there. I don't know exactly what the chemistry is here, but I can tell you one thing. That right there is different than all the rest. Coming out of spur, the brown stuff, poop, 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 poop. It's in little poops. It is what it is, because it is what it is, and it is a cloaca. This is the anal side, and this is the watery side, and here is the sphincter muscles that clamp together to shut off the flow of the fluids, which are these. Once it died, it relaxed, or it was, I don't know, whatever. But all that stuff is flowing through there, and eventually makes its way down through here, through all these little crazy looking webby things. Now what it's doing there, I don't know. But it's biology. And right there, that green stuff it's absorbing something back from the fluids that come through here. And the same thing happens in our bodies, right at the anal canal, and all animals. It either absorbs something or squirts something into it. I believe this is an absorption. And these, of course, are the pinchers. And you see how fertile green this is? That's what, the fertilizer, which is poop, makes things grow exceptionally green. So spur poops down here. The two of them come together and meet up right down in here. Now look at this. This is for the poopy stuff. And it comes over here to meet up with this watery stuff. And the two of them mix together right here at that abrupt transition. And it don't get no abrupter than that. And something serious of chemistry nature is going on in here. All right, those are not hills and valleys. There's some, what it is, I am not sure. But this is, this flows into the fluids. So let's straighten this out a little bit so it makes, all right, here we go. So this, all up in here was the guts. This is all guts up in here, which is digestive and so forth. And eventually it comes down to where you poop. This is a colon, and I mean, there's all kinds of things. If you look up in here, all of this is all digestive system, all these bumpy looking things. By the time it gets to spur, it's being discharged. It's like any other animal. This one time it was an animal. And right alongside of it is the fluid side. So you got poop and fluid. All right, so now I think we should be pretty clear on that right now. Now, the two of them come together here, and it almost looks like, this is almost like a bladder. And then it discharges down out into Cook Inlet, right here, which is where it sends its fluids out. Then after this is where you get some serious chemistry going on all the way out here, which is the end of the pincher from Scorpzilla. That is Scorpzilla we were looking at right there. Mount Spur is the rectum of Scorpzilla. Here's his head, shoulders, comes over here, all the way out to his scorpion jabber, pincher, injector. Everybody's got their own little name for it, whatever it is. Because I don't think anybody's ever seen a Scorpzilla before. It could be a little different than a regular scorpion, who knows? But all of that is volcanoes. And all of that is extreme, extreme toxic chemistry. and it comes out right down here and squirts out right at the very tip. I've shown this many times, and I'm going to continue to show it until somebody starts to pay attention to what we are living on, which is gigantic creatures' bodies that were written about in the ancient past. It's just a fact. This right here is where this thing twisted in and tucked right in here and laid out like this. And that's the muscle. When it laid out flat, that muscle would pull in and just zip. And that's what the injector would squirt, all that juice that dribbled out of here. It was squirted into some creature's body, and they would probably dissolve. I don't know what would happen to them. But anyway, this is Mount Spur, and right over here is the chemical factory that produces the killer juice. All right, you see Mount Spur here? This is all stomach stuff this way. Here is all death juice. You see all these different colors? These things here, these different colors make up different chemistry and different really toxic ingredients. And by the time it gets out to here, it's making the death juice. That's death juice right there. All of those different greens and the blues and the yellows, it's doing something here. What the chemistry, the mix is, I don't know. But it pools in here and there, it'll pool the stuff. Whether that's the major juice spot, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what's in these, what you'd call lakes. The different colors. All the different colors means different chemistry. There's just no other way to look at it. It's just impossible to understand it in any other way. And every time I see these colors, I see death. And toxic venom. The colors make the toxic venom. And that is the pincher, and that's Scorbzilla, and he runs a whole length here. All right, so we know that this is not, this is a factual thing. There's just no way to get around this. Anybody that has ever seen an avian creature's digestive system fully understand this. There's no question you can see what's going on there. And this, all of this is guts. And physics girl, who unfortunately was ill. I hope she's getting better. I heard she was getting better. I don't know. But she was up in here, and I think it was Fox, Alaska, somewhere up in, right in this area, right in the guts. And they call it the poop cave or something like that. She said it smells like dog poop. And it is. It's because it's digestive, whatever he ate. I don't know what it was. I can't imagine. Look at the size of this thing. All the way up here. And this is all where the digestive stuff happens. It's not silly. People, oh, the guy's crazy, he's nuts. Well, as they say, GFY. Good for you. This is digestive situation going on here. Nobody came up here. Look at this. All of those underneath there, there's digestion going on. Now, it's covered up with ice, but it's thawing. This whole area here was suppressed, basically, but it's thawing out now. And that's why I believe that this seismic activity is happening, because all in this area. Let me see if I can find a good spot for you to look at. But don't forget, we're in this area where it ends up going right through here, through the cloaca. It's very clear to see that. All right, here's my contention, is all of this is supposed to be frozen and stayed frozen, deeply frozen, which it decreases the amount of decomposition, which is expansion and heat and volcanism. Now, this area is still, you know, pretty well frozen, but you can see it's melting in this area quite fast, and especially right in this area, which is above Mount Spur. This should be protected with ice and snow, and it's not any longer. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's no question in my mind, that is biology. We're mud fossil people. We understand this stuff, and very few people do. I mean, almost nobody. This is biology, and this is where the thing is pooping, and that should not be exposed like that. And these are not people digging in here, I don't believe. This is just a natural runoff of this bodily creature's poop. It's all over here. It's not just one place or another. And this is not human intervention. All right, so, and you can see how extremely fertile and green this is. That is from fertilizer, which is poop. And there's Mount Spur. All of that is coming down through here. Now, like I said, this should be still frozen, and it's not. Well, what does that mean? That means that the heat is invading the terrain. So if whatever was under that, it was frozen before, is now thawing out. And when it thaws out, it expands, and gases, and just shifting and jiggling and bowling and all kinds of exactly what's happening. Exactly what is happening. And this particular area is very, very active because it's gurgling. It's like your stomach gurgles. By the time it gets down to here, it's pooping. And that brown stuff is the poop, and this stuff here, the white stuff, is the urine, basically, in birds. All right, so there is no reason for digestion to be happening past Mount Spur. That is the final destination of the intestinal action that's going on here. That's why it's risen up here and snow is on there and so forth, because they're bubbled up digestive areas. After Mount Spur, there's a whole other series of digestive looking things going on, which makes the juice, which is the venom that powers the injector. And there is no reason whatsoever that I can come up with, to think of, that after the digestion happens and all the stomach stuff happens, and then it goes to Mount Spur, which is the rectum. What's going on out here? Why is this? Well, I know why, and you know why too if you've been watching. It's because we need to make the chemical juice to power the stinger, injector, jabber, whatever you want to call it. And it runs right down this tube. Right down that tube. And then right over to the injector tube. Zip right down that tube. And right to the injector itself, which is a whole different, it's a barb. And you can see this was something else. This was some kind of different material, basically, and then the barb starts right there. And it looks to me like it has some kind of like fuzz around it. That could just be erosion, but it's hard to say. It's deep. This thing's miles deep. If we go to the top here, we're minus 680. Well, let's go 700 meters. We're minus 700 meters. So that's 700 meters below. If we go over here, we're minus 3,800. So it's over 3,000 meters more. That's 10,000 feet. That's 2 miles from the thickness of that down. You imagine that? 2 miles thick. And this whole thing is very, very obvious. You see that ridge right there? The same ridge is coming down to here. It's a squirter ridge. I'm going to call that Squirter Ridge. This one's minus 1,600 meters. And over here, it's minus 5,500 meters. So that's what, 4,000 meters, something like that. That's a lot. Up here, it's minus 142 meters. Over here, it's minus 4,600. It's 4,500 meters of thickness of this creature's body. Scorpzilla. Now, you can laugh or you can pay attention. I pay attention to what I see. If I see evidence that supports what I'm saying, well, it supports what I'm saying. Now, up here in Oregon, I think Oregon's right up in this area somewhere, Tyson Carlson, Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures, he was into this, looking deep into this for a while there, and he found a membrane right off the edge here. Well, actually, Scott Wiles tipped me off to this membrane and tendon which was off there. So I did a video on it, and Tyson saw it, and he went out and he did a lot of work out there. He did some fabulous work, and he found a membrane out there 6 feet thick. And us, you hold it up, you could look through it. You wouldn't even know it was hardly there. That's how thin the membranes in us are. And the one, well, let me show it to you. Now, this is not far off from where I'm going to show you Tyson did his research. Now, we're mud fossil people. We know that these are not just little rivers. This is some kind of biology feeding a bigger system. Again, it's not just random little patterns here. These are very specific biological patterns. Now, they come down here. I'm going to show you all the stuff that Tyson found. It's just fabulous. But all of this stuff down here, very interesting. Different types of biology. You see this here? This thing here looks like it was touching this, and then there was this brown strap coming in. These things, this creature was so enormous, Scorpzilla, that the biology is just stunningly large, as you shall see right here. This is a membrane. All right, we're going to detail this in a second. All right, here's the evidence to support what I'm saying. Everything on Earth that I can find is biological. This is a membrane. All right, there's no question about this. This is what a membrane looks like. These are the two phospholipid layers, bilayers, and this is a fluid-filled highway. And this was not well understood until recently. But this also is a membrane right here. And there's the top layer, and this is the basement layer. That's just what it is. That hole, this hole, this hole, the guy's sitting down in here having a little campfire, doing whatever they do. This was from Scorpzilla's body on the coast of Oregon. And these are the phospholipid tight junctions around here. These are little cellular bits that float around and have to stay glued together. That's the glue. Now, some of it's eroded. There used to be a Slurpee glue around here, and it came right up to that edge, so that it was like a mat that just floated around and could do all kind. What couldn't you do with that kind of structure? Anything you want. But this was the only passageway from down and up. So this would have gone up or down. And there's the hydrophilic and a hydrophobic side to it. One of them hates water, one of them loves water. They do something. They know somehow what to let in and what to let out through these channels. Because this is a membrane. That membrane's supposed to protect you. So it has to know what to let in and out. A very strange situation. Now, this is another little squirrely thing, that whatever that does. There's some of these here and there that come up between. And but that's the thickness of the layer. It's over 6 feet. And that, like I say, is on the coast of Oregon. This is it right here. It's right next to each other. These are cholesterol channels, protein channels. There's cholesterol balls. And I'll show you. Remember these balls, cholesterol balls, because I'm going to show you some in a second. Remember that little squirrely blue thing I was showing you here? There? That's that thing. And then these holes are these holes. And it only lets in what it wants and keeps out what it doesn't want in. That's what a membrane does. And they get very, very enormous, as you can see, 6 feet thick. This is in the United Kingdom. That's skin. That's skin. This is flesh, which has all of those little balls in there, same as the Moki marbles. What they do is they anchor the flesh so that it can float around and do all that it has to do, and then it comes back to where the balls were. When it erodes, they just fall down in here, and because they're covered with edible substance, the moss grows on them. These are not just something that grew all spontaneously. These are the balls that are dropping down, and the moss is attacking the edible stuff. And when it's all done eaten, that's what you end up with, these balls. It's like this. Only these are very small, and these are good size, bigger. And this was from the skin too. This is skin. These are the ones that are right up in the fleshy areas of your skin. Well, here it is right here. That's skin. Right there. There's a bazillion layers. You see it? All of those layers, layer, 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 layer. And then you get up into that's like the basement layer of skin. Then you get into your regular skin. And then just below that, you get into these, which are all the balls that float around and pull your skin back and forth. And that's what it looks like in a very simplified rendition here. And this is from 2016. They started to recognize the significance of this particular layer. Well, as a matter of fact, hold on. Here it is right here. 2018, Meet Your Interstitium, a newfound organ. It's actually this white layer here, which is the fluid-filled highway. But here, down here, is where all those balls are. It's a system. This gives you mobility. This gives you the enzymes and the bacteria live in here, in this immune layer, and they squirt their juices out into this fluid-filled highway to attack invaders that are coming through the skin. That's a membrane, basically. And they never knew it was here because by the time they autopsied them, it was the fluid that came out. This is from a creature's body. I'm sorry, this is exactly what it is, from a creature's body. And this is all that different layering that I was talking about. And there is a million different layers in there. You can't even see them. And that's the fluid-filled highway. See, that's the fluid-filled highway. When they got it in to autopsy it, all this stuff was still okay because it's fibrous and it's got connective tissue, but the fluid's just gone. So when they saw it, all they saw was stuff like this. And they never knew it was even here. Until 2018, they finally agreed. I did a paper on that in 2015 saying that's what made my fossils protect was this fascia. I call it fascia-facilitated fossilization because it still lets things in and out when they were wet in this flesh. All it was eroded, boiled flesh, and that's what they were in. And the membrane that coated this bone said, all right, you can come in, you can leave, you can come in, you can leave, and it just protected what was underneath there because it still was in flesh. It was just eroded flesh, but it was impacted. And that stuff that had to get in and get back out, now it had to stabilize. It wouldn't rot down there because it still had all the ability to have moisture and everything running through it all the time, just like it always normally did. But it wasn't feeding or growing anymore, so it ended up attaching to the bits and pieces that were coming through there that were stabilized. And there's mudstone, there's this kind of stuff, which is a giant hair follicle. Meat stabilized just like a regular meat. The fascia, that's the fascia right there. My buddy here, Caesar Augustus, his feathers and everything. Anything that had collagen, basically, collagens and keratins, they're the rubbery stuff. And they sealed and protected and caused the fascia and facilitated the fossilization of the soft tissues. And there's his neck. There's Caesar's neck right there. See it? But it's turned to basalt. Thank you, Caesar. I have so much of this stuff. It's just phenomenal, because once you start examining this stuff for what it is what it is, and there's a ton of it. I live in the topmost layer of the Triassic zone, which is the best layer in the world for the Triassic. I'm exposed. I just pick this stuff up. I don't have to dig for this stuff. It's just laying around everywhere. And some of it, there's just blood is still coming out of it. And I have a lot that should be looked into. It's just crazy to keep going on and pretending this stuff doesn't exist. You know, if you want to live in reality, here's Tyson. Here's Tyson out here. All right? So he's going out and he finds this. And we were talking about, I said, boy, that's a membrane. And these are the tight junctions. They're supposed to be sealed. And that's why you don't get sick. Only stuff allowed in and out. Well, it's eroded, obviously, so you lost all that stuff. And that's on the side of Typhon, Scorbzilla. Now, how big are the tendon balls? Here they are right here. Well, what do you mean a tendon ball, Roger? Well, those are the balls that are in the skin. You see this fluffy white stuff? That's skin. These are those skin balls, and with the tags. Right? These are the little straps that attach to them. They're all over here. These are the balls. And they're the ones that are just like these. With the brown strap is a stronger strap. And then this is the collagen, really floppy, gooey, stretchy, pulley. This is full of fluid. They're fluid-filled, balls. And you can move them this way, and they'll always come back to where they should be. And they're always right just below the skin. So your skin is mobile. But it has to stay stuck together. Now, these are see that ball? See that stalk? Here's one that's inverted. The ball's gone. The stalk is still there. The ball has fallen out this way. But we see the stalk. See that? That's red blood. And there's a stalk right there. And I'll bet you any money that's the red artery side that fed, and that's the black vein side going back. And that's the attachment spot. That's an inside out. See up here? That's just red blood. That's where the blood was in the guy's body. This is, Scorbzilla, I'm sorry. Remember I told you to keep an eye on those cholesterol balls? There they are. This is that's the membrane. This side, you see this is like black blood. That's to me, and it could be from volcanism, yes, it could be. But there's two different types of substances. And that's the membrane running right down the middle. I remember I said to pay attention to the little cholesterol balls. And that's the membrane running down from whatever was on one side and whatever was on the other. It doesn't matter. It's just what it is. All right, if we rotate that one shot here, this is something, whatever it is, and this is something else, whatever that is. And in between is the membrane. And these, I believe, are the little cholesterol balls. And these are those little filaments running up and down in the membrane. You see the little filaments running up and down? Looks like that to me. I don't know what it looks like to you. So that there's an, you know, and then again, this is all on the side of Scorpzilla. And here's another one. This looks like a colon. And this is the soft tissue. This is somewhere down in the guts of something. It looks like poop. Some kind of organ, maybe a small intestine or something, I don't know. But it's just all I can say is the world is nothing but bodies, and it's gigantic bodies, huge things. And here's all these little balls again. Those are from the skin, and they go all the way up here. And they are now eroding from the warming climate, and were frozen and not edible because they were frozen. Now they're edible. Just like over in the United Kingdom, there's piles of them. They're just everywhere because the creature was absolutely stunningly large. And all it is the moss is eating the tendon balls. Just like over here, only this is salt water. It's a brown some kind of moss.